Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Odyssey podcast, where me and my brother truck through cinema on a quest to find the best films ever made. And this week, we're talking about Forrest Gump. So, Randy...
Can I do it one time? You talking about...
Oh my god, shut the fuck up, Randy. Shut the fuck up. Everyone gets it. Forrest Gump has... Tom Hanks has the weirdest fucking accent in this movie, and it's
not so bad as long as he's not saying Jenny.
It really is. Okay, so...
Also, I'm probably going to be saying Jenny all fucked up because I just can't undo it, you know?
I know.
Because the way I talk is like a literally sponge of everything
You've heard,
with.
Yeah. So we watched Forrest Gump, the Robert Zemeckis film that made all the money in 1994.
Won 6 awards.
Won 6
Academy Awards.
6 Academy Awards. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Writing, Best Actor. This is
Best Visual Effects.
Best Visual Effects. This is the movie that kind of like helped cement Tom Hanks as like A-list star material, because he does Saving Private Ryan at like a year or two after this.
That movie's great.
He's doing I believe he's doing Toy Story very soon after this.
Hadn't he already done it?
Or actually, yeah, he did it like right before this.
Done it, yeah.
And then he does Forrest Gump, and this is the first Oscar, and after this, he just starts becoming America's good guy. He's the 21st century's Henry Fonda.
Sure.
But yeah, this is a weird fucking movie.
Strange fucking movie.
So strange, and not in a bad way.
Well, here's it's not a weird and strange movie in the way that other movies that we've seen are weird and strange. This isn't weird and strange like Mulholland Drive, Mulholland Drive, like throwback to the only movie I've reviewed that's not on this this podcast.
Yeah, the pilot episode on Too Obscure.
It's not weird like that movie.
It's not weird like Easy Rider. Yeah, you got it.
Jinx, you got it.
It's like, because it's like a comedy, but it's really not, and it tries to be this epic romance, but it's
really not,
and it's this kind of drama through history, but it kind of is. It's so weird. It's doing a bunch of different things at once, and it's hitting the average on all of them, but I don't know if it's
the movie
excellent.
Itself gets sidetracked, and I'm pretty sure that's like the point of it, but you can like, it's like a really jarring feeling, and I think the movie is like trying to really portray that it's like being told by Forrest.
Yeah.
Which makes the movie at points kind of...
It makes the movie... gets to a pure fantasy element, like, so much throughout the movie.
Yeah, like, there's so many points in the movie where you're just like, oh, come on, like, I was almost in it, I was almost immersed in the story, and then I see this shit happen, I'm like, oh, come on, like, that, it's not fucking real.
Yeah, and
it just takes me out of the movie so many different times, and it's like, it's weird because, like, I want to get more engrossed in the movie, and then it just takes me out, and then it works me back in, it's working the dough, it's kneading my stick of butter into the dough, and then it's just like, you know what, we don't need that in there, and just takes it out.
Do we even need to paraphrase this movie? I feel this movie is at this point like just a cultural touchstone for most people.
Oh no, Dean, I have my opinion on that. You must paraphrase this movie.
Okay.
I don't care how much of a cultural touchstone is it. People have not seen. I mean, I don't even know when's the last time I've seen this movie. 10 years ago?
That's probably the same for me. This was a TBS movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
Where it showed up on like TBS or USA like around 4th of July or something.
USA.
Yeah, dude. And this would come on and you'd watch it, right? But for those who don't know, the movie follows the gifted gentleman Forrest Gump as he kind of wanders through destiny and dumb luck through some of the most important events of the 20th century. Well, paralleling his story is of the love of his life, Jenny, who is going through her own dark and dirty journey through the counterculture and the darker halves of the 20th century. And we see Forrest meet 3 presidents, become a multimillionaire,
a gazillionaire,
go to Vietnam, make friends, lose friends, and just...
And not all in that order.
And have this kind of amazing life, all seen through the eyes of a man we question can even understand the significance of the world around him. And it's kind of a fascinating journey through America's history, quote unquote.
Yeah, the movie basically takes place in the last like quarter century, right? Of like the 20th century.
Yeah, I think in continuity of the film, it's like the mid 1950s to like 1980 something.
He's born in like 1945, I think.
47, something like that.
Because it's like that's what's on like Jenny's tombstone, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the spoilers, Jenny dies at the end.
Yeah, and she and on her headstone, it's like 82 is when she died. So I'll say this is the whole movie takes the span of like 30-ish years.
Yeah,
and it's a fascinating love letter to the American 20th century, kind of like glossing over huge chunks of things and just kind of meandering about in a lot of sections. Like, that's the thing. This movie meanders a lot. It just kind of wanders in and out of these historical events.
Well, here's the thing.
Goes through.
I think that's supposed to be kind of like the take on Forrest having like a southern drawl.
Mm-hmm.
How he's gonna be like very explaining these things in kind of like that drawl, you know. I think it. Let's get into a theme here. I think a big theme of the movie is the fact that it's being told by Forrest, right?
Yeah.
So we're gonna be going on these like weird tangents and kind of these like sprawling, slow, like awkwardly slow moments in the film, because that's how he's gonna be explaining it.
And I mean, we have family that's from the South, and they tend to talk real slow, and they kind of meander around, and they tell these long stories, and they kind of wander off and come back around, and it's like a style of storytelling that's very conversational.
Yeah.
But in the film, or in general filmmaking, generally you don't want to be these long, winding things unless you're doing these grand epics, right? That traverse decades and all that stuff. What the movie is trying to do, but it's also kind of trying not to. It's trying also to be this romance story and this like comedy. It's a very, again, I just keep going back to this. This is a very weird genre mashup of film. But go back to the point of the like Forrest telling the story, right? This is a very subjective film through Forrest's eyes.
Yeah, it's all supposed to be through Forrest's eyes, and I think that's where we get like the more fantastical elements of the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of these things where it just all comes so like just a little off, enough to be noticeable, which I think is like a hindrance to the movie in my eyes, to where like I can tell it's being told by Forrest a little too often.
It just doesn't feel naturalistic to you?
Which is weird, because it would be quite natural to tell a story, right? Like that's a pretty everyday thing, you know?
Yeah, it's like the most human thing you can do. We are storytellers.
And also the movie is like full of narration, right?
Oh yeah, front to back.
And it's just, but it feels so weird. Like, it feels so unnatural, so clunky, so, like, cobbled together almost, right?
Yeah, which, it's kind of like a mosaic, right? It's a bunch of different pieces just slapped together, and it's trying to tell, like, one cohesive thing, right? And I guess the big question is the movie successful in doing it?
I think it's successful in telling the story of his life. But the thing is that it's like, describing it as a mosaic, I think, is like that's very true. That is a very good way to describe the movie, because it is full of so many smaller parts that seem, like when you're watching the movie, that seem like not that important. Or, well, they don't seem that important. Even though they're like large chunks of his life, they're kind of not for any seeming reason, you know, like when he runs across the country, right? He even says himself he does it for no particular reason at all. And it's only at the end that he says it was just to get his past behind him. Another thing that happens in the movie that I'm kind of like really questioning most of the time is whenever he says he thought of Jenny, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does he think of Jenny? Like, when he says that, what is going through his head? What is he thinking about? It's one of those things that, like, near the end of the movie kind of struck me, like, we don't ever get to hear his thoughts about Jenny.
We just know that he loves her. He
loves her, and that he thinks about her a lot, but we never get to hear his thoughts on Jenny. What does he think about Jenny? And he thinks about Jenny a lot.
And it's also a thing because going into this, you hated Jenny from previous watches.
Yes.
Yeah, I assume.
From what I had remembered.
Yeah. And I, like, because all I remember from this movie, because again, saw it like 10 fucking years ago, was, man, Jenny was like so mean to Forrest and screwed him over and blah, blah, blah. And now watching it now, like as an adult and like actually having to like contextualize the film, it's like, man, she was fucked up. She had a rough go. And watching the movie now, it really does strike me when she tells Forrest you don't even know what love is, and it goes back to the question of what does Forrest actually know? Because this is another thing that I find weird in the movie. Because people continually call Forrest like, oh, he's dumb, he's an idiot, he's this, he's that, but, you know, he does, like, all this stuff. Like, there's a point where it's like, okay, he might be slow on the uptake, but the guy's not dumb. You know, yeah, he might be, like, you can fall bass backwards into success. Mm-hmm. We've seen that happen throughout history, but it's hard to do it this many times in a row. You don't hit nothing but buckets for, like, 40 years. So, like, I'm just curious, what does Forrest, like, go through his mind? Is it just these memories?
Well, it has to be the memories, right? That's all Forrest really, like, keeps a hold of throughout, like, the whole movie, right? Is the memories. Like, he moves from one place to another, from one form of life to another very fluidly without really holding on to anything other than his memories of these people, right? Mm-hmm. Like, he is not above moving from Greensboro, Alabama to the capital, to New York, to
wherever.
The bayou, I don't remember where it is, where the bubblegum shrimp is. But he is not above moving from place to place to place. The only thing he's really keeping is his memories, like the memories of the people he's met before, you know? But it's kind of juxtaposed against Jenny, who keeps a lot more than just memories along with her, right? Mm. She's not keeping these memories like Forrest is keeping them, because Forrest keeps all of them in, like, I would say, like, a high regard. Mm. But Jenny is more burdened with her memories.
You would say she has a baggage?
Yes.
Because in the movie, because, again, I saw this when I was a kid. Now going back, I'm like, oh yeah, Jenny was molested by her mm-hmm. dad, and that, like, really ruined her. And she was in, like, really abusive relationships and all these other things.
The thing, though, is that she seems to grow a lot. Like, when they get to, like, high school, right? It seems like she's, like, grown past that, right? But then when they go to college and she gets separated from Forrest, it seems like she almost regresses, right?
Yeah, which, I mean, that's a whole can of worms about, like, what abuse does to you, but it's in context of the movie.
Yeah.
That's another thing, because I don't know if you've heard, like, people's arguments about the films, because people call this, like, conservative propaganda, because it demonizes Jenny's whole counterculture excursion. She ends up being, like, this strung-out drug hippie girl that dies, whereas Forrest is, you know, slow guy, you know, down on, like, basically shouldn't succeed at all, but picks himself up by the bootstraps and just works hard and gets the gold, right? And people call this, like, conservative propaganda, and the filmmakers call it, like, completely apolitical film, which I think is kind of bullshit.
This movie is not an apolitical film.
That's some bullshit.
That is some complete bullshit. I would call this movie, if you're taking it through the lens of politics, it's definitely conservative propaganda. Like, even though I support the whole pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, like, that whole idea, but this movie takes that to, like, a whole nother fucking level, right?
Where it's like, if you just work hard and run every day and eat your vitamins and say your prayers, you'll become an All-American with a full ride scholarship, and become a Medal of Honor recipient, and become a millionaire, and get married to the girl of your dreams, and all this other stuff.
You might get one of these things.
Maybe. Just a fraction of one of these things.
But all of these things, like, come the fuck on.
Yeah, and then it's the other thing where it's like,
now,
Jenny.
Real quick, though.
Oh, yeah.
Real quick, though. On the flip side, though, I basically agree with this movie about it, like, like, the portrayal of, like, Jenny's lifestyle.
Oh, the drug-addled hippie chick?
Like, I'm just like, you know, like, I totally agree that this movie, like, takes the whole, like, conservative, like, goal, viewpoint, ideal with Forrest, like, way too far.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I'm just like, nah, that's pretty accurate for Jenny. like, unfortunately, that's just, I think that's just the way it goes.
I mean, the thing is with, I think with Jenny's thing is, because she's going through, like, the bizarro Forrest lifestyle, because she's, like, sees like Hal
The
Ashbury's
complete
street.
foil.
The complete foil, right? She's one of these people who probably went to like Woodstock, experienced acid. She went to like LA during like the rise of the Doors, and she was in the Hal Ashbury in San Francisco. She, like, if there was another movie through Jenny's perspective, it would be like instead of the 60s with Forrest where he goes to like Vietnam and all this other stuff, it'd be Jenny seeing like, you know, again, Woodstock or like all of LA and like the whole counterculture. Easy Rider. She would live the Easy Rider lifestyle, right?
Even more than that, because she got like politically active too, because she was like, there's the whole scene where they're in like the Black Panthers meeting at the Capitol, right?
Mm-hmm. And her boyfriend's like the leader of the SDS in like Berkeley, which is like it's like this whole thing where, yeah, I could see Jenny's lifestyle definitely being something that would not end well, because like that's the whole thing with like Easy Rider, right, where they were the free fun loving hippies, and then the 60s ended and they realized we got nothing to show for it, and then it led to the 70s being the depression.
It's one of these things where it's like, well, what are they working towards, not for like their cause but for themselves?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing really there, you know. They're not building up on anything other than being like a political leader or a political activist, you know.
Yeah.
And those jobs dry up all the time.
Right. But back to Forrest, because this movie being called like, you know, conservative propaganda, just what have you, but Forrest as a character.
Wait, real quick though, you got my opinion on that. What's your opinion on that?
Oh, are you kidding me? I watched this movie and I'm like, Ronald Reagan probably masturbated to this till he died. I swear to God. I actually don't know if Reagan was alive for when this movie premiered. I don't know. That man was old as fuck when he left the presidency. But I imagine like this was like the Republican playbook for like a few years.
Like when this movie came out, they were all doing like fist palms, being like, "Fuck yeah, let's fucking go!" When it won best picture, they're like, "Let's fucking go!"
Yeah, this is that fucking movie. Granted, like it probably also won because, you know, the 60s boomer generation or whatever were like, man, you guys remember when we were kids and everything was simple, rad?
Yeah,
that is probably why that movie won a bunch of Oscars. But
no, I'm just saying, you know, like that's probably what happened. They probably all hit the fist pumps, being like, "Well, let's go. This movie won," you know. And on the flip side, how do you feel about like the portrayal of like Jenny's life?
I mean, I think
in that political mindset.
in the political mindset, I think honestly, I think Jenny's life is the whole thing where it's showing two vast extremes. Because honestly, I think Jenny is just getting like fucked over through most of the movie when we see her. Where I'm like, yeah, it's like, you know, worst case scenario lifestyle choices, but I'm like, it fucking sucks. Well, but for her as a damaged character, because I look at her as a damaged character, and I feel it's a thing in the movie where it's like, oh, it's this damaged character going through these damaging things throughout her life, and then she up and fucking dies. She's like this tragic character that we dislike because she makes Forrest's life so hard, but I think she understands that she's not good for him. She's a toxic person.
Here's the thing, though, is that I don't dislike Jenny because of what she does to Forrest. I dislike Jenny because of what she does to herself. Character intention is something that I come back to.
Yes.
As we saw in the episode of The Apartment. But character, like, what is Jenny trying to do? Like, it's hard for me to understand where she's going in her life at any particular time.
I think that's
whether she has any forethought at all.
I think that's the point, you know, like how Forrest says at the end, you know,
she's the feather on the wind.
She's the feather on the wind. You know, some people have a destiny and some are the feather on the wind, and she's this person who runs away from her past and runs away from everything around her because she's searching for like her destiny or someplace to rest. And by the end of the movie, I think she kind of figures it out, where what she wanted was, you know, to be with basically the only person who ever legitimately loved her, and it just took her forever to figure it out. Again, it's the whole thing where I look at Jenny as just this tragic character that I'm like, I feel so bad for at the end, but also like, fuck Jenny. Goddamn. Movie could have ended like when Forrest asked her to marry him the first time.
The first time around.
But, you know, that's a whole other thing. But one thing that I wanted to make a point of is not only Forrest Gump as a character, but Tom Hanks' performance as Forrest Gump.
Oh, because you talked about this during the run-up to us watching this.
Because, all right, I love Tom Hanks. He's a great actor. And Tom Hanks just... I got issues.
It might not have been his decision. Let's put it out there. It might not have been his decision.
About the talkie thing?
Well, just the...
how he's portraying this person?
Yeah, how he's portraying a mentally deficient person.
Yeah, because he is playing somebody who's mentally challenged, and that is one thing in movies that I always just...
You get the ick?
Oh, I get the yick, I get the yikes, I just... No, like, that's something I'm just like, that's not...
kosher.
Like, that's not kosher. You know, like the thing where people are like, oh, if you're a, like, if you're a white dude, you can't play... Desi Arnaz in, like, I Love Lucy biopics, right? You have to be a Spanish actor or a Cuban actor, right? I'm like, bruh, I get the big yikes when I see, like, somebody playing somebody who's mentally challenged in film. That is one of my big, like, I'm bow out of this one, like, real quick. That's one of my no starters right there.
That's a non-starter.
That's a non-starter. But it's
You're like nothing good can come of this.
Nothing good can come of this. But it's like Tom Hanks is real good in this movie. And there's like a few scenes in this where I'm like, man, if this was anyone else, I would have turned this movie off. Literally anyone else. Oh, man.
Like, it's just good enough.
It's
like, his portrayal is just good enough for you to kind of gloss over it and kind of accept it.
And it's a lot of it's because he's so endearing, and like he's so...
Well,
he's not a caricature?
Well,
he kind of is. No, he's not a caricature.
He is a caricature. I would say he's kind of a caricature.
You would say so?
Yeah. He's like the nice boy in the town who can't do no wrong, you know. He's such a fine little fellow. Don't mind him.
He sweeps up in front of the movie house at the end of the night.
Yes, he's the freaking kid from, what's that movie
Last
called?
Picture Show.
Last Picture Show. He's the kid from Last Picture Show. You know, just don't mind him. He's alright.
Yeah, and...
he wouldn't hurt no flea.
and that's the thing where I'm torn, because I'm like, you can hear it in my voice, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I really like Tom Hanks in this movie, but I really don't like the character he's like portraying on like a principal standpoint. It's fucking rough. And also the way he says Jenny, I can't do it.
Oh my god.
I can't fucking do it.
Jenny.
I can't do it.
You're
I
just like,
simply can't. I went on a rant in the middle of the movie.
Shut the fuck up, Tom.
Okay. Because Tom Hanks, I don't know if you know this, when they were having him base his like southern drawl and all that stuff, Tom Hanks was like, look, I don't want to do like a real heavy like southern drawl that he didn't want to be Foghorn Leghorn, right?
Yeah.
And then Robert Zemeckis like, look, you have to do it. Like, based on the book, based on the character, like, you have to. He grew up in Greensboro, Alabama. He's a very proud Southern boy. Like, you need to have the thick accent. And he's like, fine. And the child actor, who was actually from the South and had that accent, he was like, all right, I'll just do the kid's accent.
Yeah.
So he's doing an impersonation of the kid, so the kid didn't have to change his accent for Tom Hanks's old guy performance. And, like, sometimes he just sounds like this Southern boy who's just, he just talks a little funny, right? But then there's some things where I'm like, that is, like, you would get canceled today if you talked like that, sir. Oh. Every time he says, Jenny, I'm like, I'm going on Twitter. This is over. I can't do it right now.
I'm canceling Tom Hanks
right now. And that's one of those things that just...
feel it too. Like, 90% of the performance is fine. Like, I understand, like... It's a big movie at the time, and it would be really experimental in the early 90s to actually get
somebody who... And the other thing is, Forrest Gump, in the books, it is questionable if he is mentally challenged. He's like a savant. It's weird because, this is based on a book, right? And in the book, fun fact, everybody, they cut out the part where he goes to space and becomes an astronaut. And gets trapped on a desert island and he creates a new democracy on this island.
What the fuck?
It gets weird. Also, he's kind of racist in the book. Like,
really?
Actually not kind of, like, super racist in the book.
What the fuck?
And also, he's like, it's, like, the book is way, way different, and there's a sequel to it that they were going to make, and they decided not to after 9/11. But, like, they really softened up a character who originally was very much kind of like not a good person, but Tom Hanks's performance as this kind of nice son. I don't even know where I'm going. I just know that it's so awkward. This movie is so awkward.
There's so many awkward things about this movie. But honestly, the movie isn't really that bad.
It's not even a little bit. I think Gary Sinise's Lieutenant Dan is fantastic.
Yeah, he's really good.
I even think Robin Wright, who plays Jenny, is really, really good. Like, she has depth to a character that I think is, like, always thought was, like, kind of a know-nothing character.
Her acting gets a lot better towards the end of the movie.
Yeah. And, like, that's the thing. Like, there's so much of this movie where I'm like, this is a really solid movie across the board, but it's so awkward.
It's so strange. It's so weird. All right. What was your favorite part about the movie? Well, let's get this out here. Okay. This will give us a point to talk about.
My favorite part about the movie, there's one scene by far, and that's when I knew Tom Hanks was winning the Oscar. It's when Jenny shows Forrest his son for the first time.
I was gonna say the same thing.
And the first thing he asks is he smart? Is he? And he can't get the words out, but you know he's trying to say, he's like, is he like me? Mm-hmm. And she's like, no, Forrest, he's very smart, smartest kid in his class. And you see that joy in his eyes, and I'm like, that's the only part of the movie where I'm like, I'm about to cry up. Rainey's about to cry up right now.
Bro, the whole movie is a setup for that scene. I swear to Allah. The whole fucking movie is literally just there to set up that one string to put a fucking tugboat on your heartstrings, dude. Just fucking wrench them bitches like no tomorrow. Like,
because
holy shit.
It's so good. Because you're watching this movie and you're just like, Forrest Gump is the most interesting man in history. He's done so many things. And then when he finds out he has a son, the first thing is he's like, I don't want him to be like me. I don't want him to have this hard life. What?
Right?
And I'm like, oh God, that's the moment where you just understand him, like, as a character. That is the most, like, deep, like, in the soul of Forrest Gump you get in that movie. Where it's like, this isn't like the story, this isn't the happy-go-lucky nice guy, this is like Forrest Gump, the human being, and this is the shit that, like, that's the thing that scares him. Vietnam didn't scare him, like, going into a storm and, like, having this madman on his boat, like, running across America, all this stuff, nothing. This is the thing where he's like, is he like me? And I'm, That won the Oscar right there. 100%. That won the fucking Oscar.
That got this movie all the awards. That fucking moment. That was the Oscar bait moment. The whole everything was the person who came up with turning that book into the screenplay, you know, and the director too. Like they came together with the fucking, like, the ultimate master plan. And they were like, this right here, you know. It's like in the war movies or whatever, where they point at, like, Normandy Beach, and they're like, it's gonna be right fucking here.
We're gonna do, like, this fucker right here so hard.
It's just, you know, where they lay out the battle plans, and it's like this. They circle the one point with a big red circle. This right fucking here. This is what it's all about.
And that's the thing, because, you know, like, I remember, like, Bubba dying. Like, that was the thing that was, like, growing up, you know, I was like, oh... Like, that one was the one that hurt the most, right? Because, like, we grew up watching, like, war movies and all that stuff, and I'm like, oh, you know, I don't want to see Bubba die, you know, it's his best friend, and then he goes and he does the whole soliloquy at his grave, and I'm like, oh, that part, like, always hurt growing up, and then it's like, oh, his mom dying, and like, oh, no, like, his mom, and then, like, all that stuff, like, now we're watching it now, and it kind of, like, fades away, and I'm like, okay, no, this is, like, really good, and, like, this is, like, oh, that's a really good scene, really good acting, and then, like, once we get to that scene where he meets his son, like, the artifice goes away, and then I stop seeing the actors.
Yeah.
And that's, like, the only part of the movie where, like, the actors disappear for me.
Yeah, where you're watching the characters, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's no longer Tom Hanks and Robin Wright. It's fucking Forrest and Jenny. Like...
Are you okay?
Dude, it hits so fucking hard, that scene. That scene goes fucking hard. That's like the scene at the end of Sixth Sense almost.
You can't do that one?
It's just like, God damn.
He's like, fuck this man.
There's
fuck
more,
Haley Joel Osment.
There's more fucking, yeah, true, honestly. He's in both scenes. But the thing about that scene is that that's like the most character development I've seen in, like, any fucking movie that happens in one fucking scene.
Because you have all these expectations for both these characters.
It's because, like, Forrest... as, like, a character is like an egg, and that's the only time that you ever seen crack, right?
Mm-hmm. Like, he's the same guy throughout the entire movie for the most part.
Yeah, he really doesn't change almost at all.
Yeah, Jenny's the one who actually goes through the arc, and she changes from she has a character arc throughout the whole movie, and we only see glimpses
ups
coming
and downs, and she goes through everything, right? And
Yeah.
Forrest basically stays the same except for like 2 scenes, and that's when he meets his kid and when he's talking over Jenny's grave. That's it.
And those are where you see like the deep cuts of the soul right there.
Mm-hmm. That's when we get to see like, all right, give him the fucking the fucking Oscar.
Fuck it. And also Jenny's grave scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it is one of the sweetest, saddest, and hardest things I think I've ever seen, where he actually puts his son's letter on Jenny's grave
without reading it.
Because like that's one of those things where, you know, like you give, like the kid gives the letter to like the grave, and like the dad, you know, he saves it, puts it away. He doesn't actually take it there because he's like, no, I'm gonna save this so I can, like, you know, preserve it, you know, because it's something for his mom, you know. Yeah. But Forrest, because, you know, he doesn't break a promise, he's like, you know, I didn't read it. I'm gonna leave it here for you, and just leaves it on his grave and walks away. And I'm like,
that shit hit hard.
That snaps my soul.
It snapped my soul in half.
Do you need tissues?
No, I'm alright. I got my sleeve.
It's fucking Forrest Gump, Sixth Sense, fucking Sophie's Choice, snap Randy's soul in half.
But here's the thing, is that the rest of this movie does like almost nothing for me.
Right? Like, every time there was a comedy bit in it, you were like, the fuck is this?
Fuck right off.
Oh my god, I wish we had a counter for every time.
I probably said it like 12 or 13 times during the whole movie.
Yeah, where you were like, fuck right off. I wish I had a counter, because it was like every 5 minutes, every time Forrest would like, oh, Lieutenant Dan, and jump into the fucking water and swim that.
Fuck off.
Or he's like, and me, Lieutenant...
He didn't do that.
And me and Lieutenant Dan went to the church, and he's in the gospel choir, and he's just like standing stock still and mad dogging into the bathroom, and everybody's like singing, moving around, getting into the rhythm.
An all-black woman gospel choir, and he's there
standing stock still as they're grooving to the gospel.
White dude just singing along with them, and I'm like, fuck right off. That is bullshit. Don't you dare put that in my fucking movie. I swear to God.
When the drill sergeant is like, you're a goddamn genius, IQ 160, because he asked Forrest, what's the one thing you're supposed to do? And he's like, listen to you, drill sergeant. And he's like, goddamn genius, son. And I'm like, what the fuck?
It's so fucking... Or when he's being chased by the kids when they're in like high school, right? He's being chased by the kids in the truck.
Yes.
And like the truck is like almost catching up to Forrest, and Forrest like veers off, right?
And then he dusts that fucking truck.
And then they cut to like the truck chasing Forrest in the field. It's not been more than a second, and Forrest has dusted that bitch by like 40 yards,
dude.
And I'm just like, eat my fucking asshole. Like, that is not real. Fuck off,
dude. And here's the craziest thing, because there are parts in this movie where I'm like, where you would think that can't be fucking real. That's so much bullshit. Like when Forrest runs across America.
Well, no, that part I wasn't like, oh fuck right off. But like, you know, him dusting the fucking truck,
or his leg braces snapping apart, and then it cuts to the wide, and he's like 100 yards ahead of these kids,
he's like
dusting these motherfuckers,
dusting the kids on the bikes. You know, it's just like shit like that. I'm like, oh, just fuck right off. Like,
and it's like, I don't want to be mean
when they cut him into like any of the like historical footage.
Oh god,
I'm just like, fuck off,
dude.
Like, stop.
People were so into that because, again, one best visual effects, right? And a lot of this movie is like, oh my god, like this is such a huge step forward with visual effects technology, right? Green screening, chroma keying, like putting Forrest or Tom Hanks into these archival footage and having him quote, under big quotes, seamlessly meld into these archival footage, interact with these like old people who've been dead for blah, blah, number of years. Yeah. And it's like, at some points, I'm like, okay, you could maybe get away with that, but goddamn, this would have been better looking on VHS.
Oh, 100%. 110%. The higher quality doesn't know justice here.
Does not help.
If I was watching this on YouTube in 240p, I think it would look so much better.
Right? Because, like, the mouth thing on all the presidents that are talking to him just don't sync or work right at all.
The one that's the worst is when it's, like, the school integration scene, right? And he's, like, poking his head between the person that's talking and like the person next to him.
Oh yeah, like
And
he's peeking around the back, and it looks like a bad shot.
It looks so fucking bad.
It's worse than a deep fake now.
Yeah. Oh god, yes.
And it's some things where I'm like, because there's some
Sometimes
of it.
fine.
Sometimes it's fine. I mean, there's some where it's like really good. Like when they remove Gary Sinise's legs, like that stuff's really good.
Yeah.
Like it is like seamless. The other stuff is like the ping pong balls, because all that's CGI.
Yeah.
There's never a ping pong ball in the entire movie.
That stuff's like really, really good.
Really, really good. And it's a whole thing where it's like the movie is really good with it in some parts. And then in some parts I'm like, ILM, you were half-assing the feather, weren't you? You were half-assing that feather.
It gets pretty blurry at times, but I think it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a nitpicky thing from this movie that's literally as old as I am. But I guess the other thing about this movie is Robert Zemeckis, the director.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say this right now. In terms of AFI movies, this should not be on the list. Back to the Future should be on this list as the Robert Zemeckis.
As the Robert
God damn it.
That is some heavy bias.
Fuck right off. Back to the Future, greatest script ever written, has the best casting ever made. There is not a single bad performance, and every one of them should have gotten an Oscar for their performance. It is perfect. It is the perfect trilogy. Fight me, Star Wars. You can go fuck off. Back to the Future 2 is Back to the Future is better than Empire. Back to the Future 3 is better than Jedi. You can suck my dick, you think difference.
Back to Future 3.
Damn right. You watched Back to the Future 3 lately? That movie is awesome.
Shut the fuck up.
I swear, dude.
Alright, let's get back to talking about Forrest Gump.
All right.
Let's back
Back it up. So Robert Zemeckis, right?
Robert
Zemeckis, he became known as the $1 Million Director, right?
Here's the thing though. I didn't particularly care for much of the directing in this movie.
Okay, that's a good question. That's an interesting question. Why not?
I just none of it seemed really innovative to me. None of it really stood out as like, oh, that's a really good shot. That's a really good sequence. Like it all seemed very kind of like 1, 2, 3, wrap it, set it off. Very formulaic, very like
old studio style.
Yeah, like just kind of like, yeah, that's good. Wrap it up. You know, like there wasn't really like, oh no, I need more from this. You know, I'm gonna try my best to get the, you know, like it didn't seem like he was really trying all that much. Like he was just doing it very stock, like,
which is kind of weird, crazy because this is the guy that did like Who Framed Roger Rabbit, like
that is not stock,
which is years beforehand, and it is not stock. I mean, granted, it's. Like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, if you haven't seen it lately, it's Chinatown with cartoons, and it is just as awesome as I just explained to you. But with this, it really does feel like a movie that was made to be as middle-of-the-road, like, time-lifey as possible. Like, it feels like a movie that should run on TBS till the end of time. Like, this will please everybody.
100%. This and All the President's Men just run on TBS.
Just
back to back, over and over.
Yeah, but that's the thing about the direction in this movie. There's no, like, Tarantino, like weird stuff. There's no, like, Dennis Hopper doing, you know, like weird camera movements, weird cut editing. Everything is very just standard and clean, and it's almost by the books.
Like, I don't even know, like, what's the longest shot in this movie? Like 20 seconds?
Maybe there's no long takes in the movie, I don't think. I mean, some of it's kind of impressive with the technology integration.
Yeah, that's the more impressive part about any of this.
Yeah, which, I mean, he did have to direct them. There's a whole green screen process, and he did have to, like, get performances out of hangs versus people who weren't there and there were stand-ins. Like, he did do, like, incredible things as a director, but how the movie is shot overall, how, like, again, like, he's getting great performances out of his actors, but...
True, which I guess is his main goal.
Yeah, which is his main thing. Like, that's why he's there, to direct the actors, but creatively across the board, I'm like, this movie feels almost like a perfect product for, like, the masses of America, right? Like, this thing feels almost, like, genetically engineered to just be the perfect movie for as many people who go to movie theaters during the months of, like, January to March. I mean, old people. Yeah. This is the perfect old people movie.
But is that where we get, like, this kind of, like, weird feeling of the movie? Are we getting, like, an uncanny valley effect of, like, you know, it's it's impersonating a good movie. And it's getting real close, but it's in that valley where it's like, there's something off here.
Well,
I don't know what it is.
It's not a bad movie. That's the thing. Like, I will not call this a bad movie. This is a good movie.
I think this movie's a fine movie.
A fine film.
A fine movie. It's not great. I wouldn't say it's that good either. It's fine.
Really? I think it's good, but granted, I also look at it and I'm like,
it's just so...
Tom Hanks, I think, is just so good in it, and he's the only actor I've ever seen portray somebody who is mentally challenged in a way that I could still stand to watch on screen.
Oh, real quick, what the fuck is up with Bubba's, like, his, like...
I have no fucking idea.
His, like, gum prosthetic or whatever. Like, why the fuck?
Ain't a foggy idea, sir.
Like,
I know.
That
it's
shit
something...
looks like a caricature from, like, one of those, like, old Disney cartoons that they don't show anymore.
Oh,
because
yeah.
they're too racist.
Yeah, and it's... Also, like, is Bubba mentally deficient? I don't think he is.
I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be implied that he's, like, Forrest, right?
Yeah, but it's like, he's also, like, got his shit together. He knows things. It's almost like... It's so weird, like, Bubba as a character, because, like, Bubba is a character that I think so many people just, like, love in this movie, because I've met people in real life who go by the name of Bubba because of Forrest Gump, alright? And he was a fine gentleman. But it's so weird, because he is, like, this caricature of, like, a stereotypical, like, uneducated, like, African-American person from the South.
Yeah.
But and then they're trying to, like, deepen his character by him having a whole backstory and his relationship with Forrest.
That's also, like, a commentary on, like, that they comment on in the same movie with the Black Panthers, right? Like, sending these uneducated black men from the South to war.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's a commentary where they comment on it in the movie just later on.
And it's such a weird thing, and I do not understand why the prosthetics there. It's probably something to do with, like, the character in the book.
And they were like, no, we need to keep that.
I guess?
I
just fucking like, guess?
But why, though? And it's just, it's so weird.
It looks weird. That's the thing. There's so many parts of this movie that look really weird, but there's also some parts that I'm like, this is great. Okay, like, one part of the movie that I think is actually, like, really, really good, and also have, like, a weird, like, factoid about it. The battle scene in Vietnam, where it's shelled out, and it's, like, this whole thing, and Forrest has to drag his boys out, you know, onto, like, the cliffside so they can get, like,
it's like a beach or something.
Or a beach so they can get choppered out. That was voted one of the most realistic Vietnam War sequences of all time in cinema. Because the gentlemen who voted in were like, it's exactly like it was over there. You didn't see the enemy, the gunfire came from everywhere, your friends were dropping, you didn't know where it was coming from, and you were scared shitless. That was the closest most of these guys ever saw to seeing something they experienced on screen.
Jesus.
And I'm like, props to you, Robert Zemeckis, for pulling a Spielberg for like 5 seconds, like he did in Normandy, but like, why?
What do you mean, why?
Why is he in Vietnam?
I guess it's in Forrest?
Yeah.
Well,
I guess...
It fits in the timeline, like, why wouldn't he?
Yeah, I guess.
What else is Forrest gonna do at that time? Go play in the NFL?
Could have. He could have been...
Oh, that's another part where I was like, oh, fuck right off. When he's running downfield in the college ball game, and then he books a straight left, and they're like, no, Forrest, that way.
Okay.
And then he still doesn't get caught up to him. Fuck right.
So, I've seen this thing, and it's like the movie Fantasy Football League, right? Where they watch sports movies and they do draft picks for players, and they're like professional, like, NFL scouts.
Yeah.
Right? And they're like, yo, Forrest Gump was a real man? Oh yeah, he'd be a first round draft pick. That motherfucker got a 440, that'd be unimaginable. You get him on special teams? Oh, that motherfucker gets you to a bowl. He gets you a ring.
Shut the fuck
I swear to God. Like, that's the thing about this movie. This movie is so weird. And I know I keep going on these weird tangential bullshit things, but
it's all this movie is. It's weird tangential bullshit.
Yes, and it's like, I kind of love it for that.
I kind of hate it. Well, I hate it when I'm watching it. It's funny as hell when we're talking about it.
That's the thing. Like, this movie is so fun to talk about, but, like, when we watched it, I remember you were like, oh, we haven't gotten to running across the country
I'm like,
yet.
What part of the movie was that?
It was when
when Jenny shows up right to Forrest's house,
so she can get impregnated.
Yeah, so she can get fucking railed by Forrest and get impregnated by him. And I was just like sitting there being like, oh fuck, he hasn't even ran across the country yet. Oh my god.
and it's a thing where he does that, and it's, the last 20-30 minutes of the movie, right? And then it leads into like the best scene of the film by far. But
where he finally gets off the park bench.
Yeah, but the movie is 2 hours and 22 minutes. I don't know if it needs to be that long.
It really doesn't. It really does not need to be this long.
I mean, because it's like, this would be very interesting, like, episodically for, like, the story of Forrest Gump's life, but it is so hard to sit through for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
It's like, these are nice, like, 30, 40-minute segments, and then I'm like, I really just can't hear him say Jenny again. I just can't. I'm sorry.
Dean's over there being like, if this motherfucker says Jenny one more time, click clack, I'm gonna blast his ass.
I don't know why. It is like nails on a chalkboard. Nails on a chalkboard. I swear to God.
Because it's the only thing he says where he like really overemphasizes it.
And it's not like, and that's when it goes full cartoon.
Yeah.
For me, where I'm like, okay,
or
everything
up
up
to
this
full caricature.
Full caricature, and I just can't. And that's the problem with the movie. It's almost like Spartacus. It's 10 degrees every direction from being perfect. But not perfect, being great.
Here's the thing. I give the movie a lot of credit because it does kind of like do all of these weird small things throughout the movie. It does like these comedy bits and really dramatic shit. I mean, like, Jenny almost kills herself like twice in the movie.
Yeah.
And she dies later on of HIV.
We're pretty sure it's AIDS.
Yeah.
Heavily implied.
Heavily implied it's AIDS. And like all of this different stuff in the movie, and like has like these really deep moments, and it does all of these things without being completely incoherent.
Yeah.
Like, it's a coherent movie.
Which is so impressive.
Honestly, is impressive by itself.
On paper, this movie should not make a lick of fucking sense.
No. God, no.
Like,
especially considering the source material.
Yeah. Honestly, this movie, this is one of those movies I feel could not be made today and still be... For a plethora of reasons, but it would not be as loved or beloved. Because let's be honest, this movie is not just loved, it is beloved.
People fucking love this movie.
We know somebody...
Fucking love this movie.
We know somebody who every Christmas, they do not watch A Christmas Story, they do not watch It's a Wonderful Life, they don't even watch Die Hard. They sit down as a family, and they watch Forrest Gump, and they have for like 15 years. This movie is fucking loved. And I kind of see why. Because it's a movie that I feel so many people can get so many things out of. And it has like generally a good message, you know? It's like, no matter where you are in life, you can like, work hard and blah, blah, blah. Like, hashtag conservative values circa Reagan. Well, but it's a message that I
also
can like
the
understand.
Whole like destiny and the like whole like mixing of destiny and like wandering around like the feather in the movie.
Yeah, and it's like your destiny's not written, but it's out there if you can find it.
Yeah.
And it's a really thoughtful movie that shouldn't be as thoughtful as it is. It's a funny movie that shouldn't really be as funny as it is, and it's a dramatic movie that shouldn't be as dramatic as it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie that's it's slightly above average in all the things it's trying, but when you put it all together, it feels so, like, awkward.
It is an awkward movie.
I know we've said that, like, 15 times.
It's just so true. It's like when we talked about, like you just need to watch this movie to understand like what we're talking about here. Like it's like when we talked about Sunrise, right?
Yeah.
You need to watch the movie to understand like why it is the way we're talking about it. Like why this movie is so awkward. Why Sunrise is such a beautiful movie,
Yeah, and it's like I don't really know. I don't.
Well, here's the thing.
No.
Like I understand why Is Forrest like one of the most endearing like characters in all of cinema? Like, is that why people love this movie so much?
I would probably hazard a guess to say yes. Forrest Gump is
top 10.
Forrest Gump is one of these characters where you just kind of love to see him just just move along. You just really love to see Tom Hanks play that character and just be this kind of slow but really kind man who knows he's in love with this woman, who just can't express it, and who can do these great things and see all these amazing parts of history but not really understand what's going on around him. He's this character you just wish you could just explain things to. He's just such a sweet character.
You know what? I just had like the worst thought pop into my head.
I hate you so much.
And I'm just gonna have to throw it out there. Fucking Forrest Gump has that Sigma male grind set.
Well, I don't even know what that means. I'm an internet boomer. I do not know what that means.
There's alphas and betas, and then there's Forrest Gump, man. He's just on his grind. He doesn't care about anything else except for,
Jenny and getting shit done.
Yeah, getting shit done. Yeah, that's all he cares about, He's like, I'm gonna own Bubba Gump's company. I'm gonna be a shrimping man. I'm gonna make $1 gazillion shrimping. And he goes and he does it. He doesn't care about any kind of bitches, anything like that. The only things he cares about is Jenny and getting shit done. He's on that grind set.
I mean, you're kind of right. Like,
I just imagined him like super buff and like those like ripped jeans that are like 3 sizes too small.
Okay, for one thing, with how much Forrest Gump has to run, and the fact that he is an all-American like football player, I'm like, he should be yoked out of his mind.
He should look like that picture of like, it's like, I think it's like some football player in the 70s, and people always refer to him as like Chad, and he's got like the black streaks on his like his cheeks. And he's got like the military haircut, like blonde or whatever, and he's like this huge buff dude in like football pads.
Yeah, probably like 6'8", 400 pounds of raw muscle, eats a whole chicken every meal. Yeah, like,
dude, his legs should be the size of my fucking torso.
To go back to the thing, because this is based on a book, and I just like bringing it up because I did a lot of research on like the book, right?
Okay.
In the book, Forrest Gump is the fucking mountain from Game of Thrones.
Okay.
He is
huge.
Monster of a man. He is legit like 6'6", 6'8", like 300 plus pounds of just raw muscle. Like, he is supposed to be yoked out of his mind, and they get Tom Hanks, who's, in shape, but he ain't fucking Sly Stallone, alright?
No. Like, they should have gotten fucking Arnold. Could you imagine if they got Arnold or Stallone to play fucking Forrest?
The writer wanted John Goodman to play Forrest. That was his envision, was John Goodman, but just like in a tight John Goodman. Can you imagine like a swole John Goodman? That'd be terrifying.
Buff John Goodman.
Yeah.
I'd be like, what fucking timeline is this?
I'd be horrified.
I feel like I need to get back to my time.
But yeah, that, and like, oh my god, and they wanted so many people to come in to play Forrest Gump. Like, I think they offered like a bunch of people this role, and they all turned it down. Like, Chevy Chase was gonna be Forrest Gump at one point. The actual
this
fuck
is
I
like
know.
When what's his name was like has like pictures of him in like the Superman suit.
Oh, Nicolas Cage?
Nicolas Cage in the Superman suit. Like that shit.
Say what you will. I think we could have gotten a pretty good Superman with Nick Cage.
I mean, it'd have been fucking hilarious.
I mean, Tim Burton was going to direct it too.
Oh my
Kevin
God.
Smith wrote the script.
I know. It would have been glorious.
It would have been amazing. And the producer was the guy that did Wild Wild West.
Oh my god.
He wanted a giant spider in the third act.
It would have been the greatest thing of all time.
It would have. It would have been the Citizen Kane of the 90s.
Dude, it would have been so good for our timeline because, Kevin Smith might have made enough money off of that so he wouldn't have to work now. So he wouldn't get his bullshit he has nowadays. But anyways.
Yikes. So, okay. But Forrest Gump, do you got anything you wanna press upon before we get to the question? Like the only question we ask on this podcast.
You want to talk about some of the themes of the movie? Because it's got a lot of themes going for it, but I feel like it kind of does the thing that I think a lot of movies do, where it comments on its own themes inside of its own movie.
And yeah, because it's trying to analyze what's going on itself and leave the audience with like, this is what we found exploring this theme, which a lot of movies do, which, is fine.
I don't particularly like it.
Because you like philosophy stuff. You love Blade Runner because it was like, here's an open question. Also, here's like 40 of them.
Yeah, I like the open-ended, like, self-reflection the movie gives on you at the end, and not so much this, like, you know, sending these young men off to war and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And, you know, destiny isn't something we choose. You just kind of fall into it. You know, like all these different themes of the movie. And it's
like, what is love?
What is love? You know, what does it mean to love somebody? Which I heard a very beautiful quote by somebody about love. And love was, you know, when you don't want something to end, that is love. You know, when you want something to go on for eternity, that's love.
Well, that's really sweet. Mm-hmm. You heard that in a Kanye song, didn't you?
No, I heard it on a lecture of pre-Socratics.
That is way more pompous than I thought you would get. All right. I was hoping it was Kanye.
No, it was not Kanye.
The greatest philosopher of our time.
Kanye West. No, he's not much of a philosopher. He's the greatest producer of our time, maybe.
All right. But, like, because I've heard, like, because that's, like, another, like, main crux of the movie, because Jenny is searching for something and, you know, trying to find love, and she doesn't want to love Forrest because she just feels she's not good for him, and that's kind of love.
At different times in the movie, I feel like at first, I feel like it's not like she's not good enough for Forrest, it's that she's too good for Forrest, right? Like, she's like, I don't want to be with Forrest. He's not smart. He's not a smart guy.
You know, he's the guy that I like, that helped walk me home, and he was nice and sweet, but he's just my friend.
He's just my friend, you know. And later on in the movie is when she thinks that she's not good enough for Forrest. I think she goes through a transformation there to where at first Forrest isn't good enough for her, and then they kind of switch spots into where now she feels that she's not good enough for Forrest because of the things she's been through, you know?
Mm-hmm. And then Forrest is like, he knows, like, from the bat, like, he's in love with her. And I feel like a lot of the movie is him, like, I don't even think his perception of his love for Jenny has changed at all in the movie. I think it's a thing where he knew what love is from the get-go, and Jenny just didn't understand that he could feel that because of who he is. And I think that's another sweet thing, because it's like, you know, you might not be as smart as, you know, everyone else, but, like, you can feel as much as everyone else. Like, feeling and emotion is just something that's so, like, raw and human. Like, love is a very, like, pure, organic thing of just the human condition. Like, that's not something you have to learn. It's just something that you have an experience.
Yeah.
And it's a really sweet concept in the film, and I think it's really nice. Yeah. But also, fuck Jenny. Should have married him the first time he asked.
True.
She got married out of high school and started pumping kids out. Little Forrest is back to back.
She wouldn't have died of HIV.
Forrest also would have been sent to Vietnam.
Maybe not.
No, he would have been the sole caregiver.
Oh, true.
Also, he didn't get drafted. He enlisted.
He did also enlist. Also
exactly. Bubba was drafted. But Randy, as of that time, that's the only question on this show.
We've asked a few questions on the show, actually.
Yeah, the only one that actually repeats.
Oh. Why are you gay?
I hate you so much. So, it spawned in the AFI Top 100 Films of all time. At number 76. Does it deserve a spot on the list?
Now, here's the thing. It is quite an American movie.
Yes.
Well, let's get that out there. Like, we can both agree, like,
this is
almost as fucking American as apple pie.
It is a love letter to literally the last half of the 20th century of the United States. Through arguably the most important, like, couple decades the United States went through. Like, the 60s, 70s, like, yeah.
How do you feel about it?
It's a super American film. It has a cultural impact. It has the Oscars to show it. The movie itself is pretty good. But it's kind of awkward. Like, that's
like you're giving it a lot of praise there.
But the movie as it stands is probably a little too high. This being over movies like Sunrise, over movies like Easy Rider, Platoon, things like that. Or Do the Right Thing. This being over Do the Right Thing, I think isn't right.
This is over All the President's Men.
This is also over All the President's Men, where Randy really enjoyed that movie.
That movie's great. That movie's PG.
It is. You still can't get over this.
I can't get over that.
Forrest Gump is PG-13.
I know.
And
they say fuck.
They do.
And they get their titties out. They don't see the titties, but they get them out.
But yeah, I feel this at 76 is a little too high. This is
Way
like
too high.
this is like an 80s, 90s movie.
Yeah.
Really, like easily.
Easily like down in the 90s.
Yeah, I think like
I
it
feel
being
like-
in the 80s is probably a cleaner suit because it does do a lot of things really well. It's a very watchable movie.
I feel like
Well,
like,
I guess
could
it's not that
I
watchable.
want to replace this movie with something else, honestly. Like, I want to be like, cycle this bitch off.
Let's put Back to the Future on here. It's the Zemeckis.
Shut-
Okay.
Do
Robert,
we need Zemeckis on here? Alright, name all the movies he's done.
all three Back to the Futures, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Let me get the Forrest Gump. Let me get the IMDb out.
Like, he doesn't sound all that impressive. Like, yeah, it's fine and all, but...
All right, here we go.
Castaway? Polar
Yeah.
Express? Ew, he did Beowulf. He got fucked. That's
Yeah.
where you can see his career take a nosedive right after Beowulf.
I know. He also did Contact. He did like Tales of the Crypt. Basically, him.
Tales of the Crypt?
Yeah. He was one of the
Oh, he did a couple
episodes, and
I
I think
see.
he was one of the producers on Tales from the Crypt. Because that's the thing. He's like a bigger like producer person. Like
Mhm.
him, Spielberg. Those guys were really big producer people. Like Spielberg helped do all the production stuff for Back to the Future and Who Framed Roger Rabbit. And it's like he's a good director and he really does push forward like technology stuff.
I did Contact. I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, Contact's really good. I watched that movie not too long ago. It's probably one of the better like alien invasion quote unquote movies. It's a very like smart movie based on a Carl Sagan book. It's a very good film. But like he's a good director.
He's good, but I'm looking at the list of his work, and I'm just like, is this deserved of like, oh, he's good enough to where we just need something from him on the AFI? I don't think we're at that level.
Look, I know you are you are just Dean is a biased son of a bitch for Back to the Future.
I like Back to the Future. I think they're good, but they're not, like, come on now.
Okay, legitimately, they use the script to teach like the perfect script at USC and UCLA.
Because it's easy to understand.
Yes, and it's great. And there's not a bad performance. It's an iconic film.
It is an iconic film, but it's just like what is it really trying? What is it really like? Really accomplishing over others' films? Like, are you gonna tell me that film is better than Sunrise? Straight face, right now. Is it better than Sunrise? A Song of Two Humans? I should say.
Okay. First of all, do you mean as a cinematic experience
Overall.
or as enjoyment?
Overall,
Okay, overall, I mean, Sunrise, though a great, beautiful film, does not have Doc
Gorgeous.
Brown in it. Does not have Christopher Lloyd.
I would not knock Sunrise for not having Christopher Lloyd.
Or Michael J. Fox. Come on now. Or Crispin Glover. Come on. But yeah, no, I get you. I understand what you mean. Like as pieces of pure art cinema,
I've
like
broken
Sunrise is
him
better.
down. I've
Yeah, but
broken him down.
I'm saying as a representative of like a Zemeckis film on this list, it's either like his best movie, I would argue, is Back to the Future. Like as a person who's seen a lot of the movies that you would argue are his best, I would say Back to the Future is his best movie. But that's the thing. Is that good enough to be on this list?
Yeah.
Like
Your best movie being Back to the Future, is that good enough to like cement you on the AFI Top 100? Only 100 movies can be on the list.
I understand, and we have no Mel Brooks films on this at all. We have no David Lynch on this list at all. There's a lot of people who should be on and that are not. And Forrest Gump, I think, is on here because it is the Zemeckis film that swept the Oscars and made a shit ton of money. It was number 2 in 1994 behind Lion King. Literally, the power of Disney was the only thing that stopped Forrest Gump from running away with the box office. And I get it. It's a really good movie.
That's good. It's fine.
It's not like 100 greatest films of all time, though.
I don't feel it.
You don't feel it?
I don't feel it.
So you're thinking if they redid this list,
low 90s are off the list.
Low 90s are off. Is this this is one of the first films I think we've only done like 3 or 4 where we're like just off completely.
Yeah, it's like when we did our last list, all the movies we rated like, 199, 98,
Yeah. And I mean, like, don't be wrong, like, those movies I were like, oh, these are just flawed movies and not very good. But this one, I'm like, it's impressive, but I'm like, it's not special. Oh, fuck off. The movie,
Sorry.
but like legitimately, there's nothing like super special about this movie.
There isn't anything like that's really wowing me about it. That's like, oh my god, you know, like except for like those 2 scenes, but it's just tugging at the heartstrings, you know, like that's like the cheapest way to like have a really good scene in a movie.
I mean, it did make you cry though.
It did, but honestly, that's like the cheapest. It is the cheapest thing to get like a pop for your movie, right?
Just make the people cry at the end.
Make a really heartbreaking scene near the end, like.
You know.
Yeah, it's like that's basically like the only thing people remember about what was that movie? I Am Legend. Is the dog dies.
Yeah. I would dare people to tell me which is the real ending of that movie, because I don't think people remember the theatrical ending versus the like director's cut ending or whatever. Because I don't know how many people actually watched the whole fucking movie. But besides the point, that was Forrest Gump. And next week, Randy, we get to watch a movie that's completely different. We're going to be watching In the Heat of the Night.
We might watch it this week.
Yes, it is our Sidney Poitier movie on the list. And it's very, very good from everything I've heard. Story about this black detective who goes down to the very like rural and segregated South and is trying to unravel this mystery. And I'm really excited to watch it. I don't remember how many Sidney Poitier films I've ever seen.
What else has he done?
Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, To Start With Love. He's done like a lot of things, but he's one of these actors that I don't remember in a lot of things, but I know he's one of the, like, literally one of the best actors to have ever, like, graced the screen, so I'm very excited for this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one, too. Yeah.
But, with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you wanted to check that out, you can check us out on our YouTube channel, In the Frame. That's right, In the Frame on YouTube. And you can also find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. With that, Randy, any last words?
Jenny.
You son of a bitch! See y'all next week.
See ya.